Okay, good morning to everyone. We're so honored to have this HBCU graduate panel of wonderful speakers. I think many of you know Miss Eleanor Jean Henley, who is at our school, actually has a desk in my own office, in our office, I should say. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce the person who is chairing this. It's my understanding she's a vice president of the Coalition of 100 Black Women. And take it away and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I definitely appreciate you. Good morning, students, esteemed panel, NCBW 100 PA sisters, and leaders of String Theory Charter School. My name is Naisha Chapman, and I'm the first vice president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Pennsylvania chapter. On behalf of our president, Latifah K. Fields, I welcome you all today to our CAP career panel in collaboration with String Theory School. The mission of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women in Pennsylvania chapter is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership development and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. Across the United States, we are comprised of over 3,000 members in over 62 chapters. Through our national and local partnerships, we are proud to be a voice for our communities. For more information about the coalition and some of our activities, you can feel free to visit our website at www.nc100bw-pa.org. Our chapter, the Pennsylvania chapter, is one of the largest chapters within our organization with over 135 members, where we focus our work in the Philadelphia region. One of our organization's initiatives focuses on STEM, mentorship, and access to higher education. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pennsylvania chapter understands the importance of providing information to various professional careers and the journey to those specific career paths. By supporting these positive experiences, fostering a positive self-perception and self-respect, and encouraging excellence in education and promoting the pursuit of lifelong goals, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women is creating future leaders like the students participating in today's event. I want to thank again the Philadelphia Performing Arts String Theory Charter School for collaborating with us on this event. I will now turn it over to Ms. Eleanor Jean Henley, who is not only a longtime member of our organization, but she is also one of our chartering members. Ms. Eleanor.
Thank you so much. And let me, I think I'm having okay. Thank you very much on behalf of the Pennsylvania Coalition of 100 Black Women, of which I am a proud co-founder. I am delighted to be here. I think as Ms. Thomas mentioned, I am a longtime friend and supporter of string theory. I do have an office in her, desk in her office, if you will, and have had the pleasure of participating and moderating a number of career panels for string theory during the past number of years. And I am especially proud to be here today because, again, Pennsylvania Coalition of 100 Black Women is near and dear to my heart. And I am so proud of this organization in that we take advantage of every opportunity that we have to reach out into the community and to help empower women and girls. So I'm going to start off today with just a brief introduction of the panelists who are here with you. And they, in turn, will tell you about themselves. At some point, of course, we're going to get into questions and answers. And I'll throw a couple of questions out there for you that you can be thinking about and can put in the chat so that when we do ask to hear from you, you already know what you're going to ask. One of the questions to you students is going to be, why are you considering an HBCU, attending an HBCU? Do you know of anyone who has attended and graduated or may currently be enrolled in a historically Black college and university? So I'll just put those two questions out there right now so that they can kind of marinate in your mind, and we're going to go straight into our introductions. So the first introduction is with the School District of Philadelphia, and her name is Dr. Nashawana Francis Thompson. She is the associate or the deputy chief of curriculum and instruction in the school district of Philadelphia. And I'll just briefly say that in this role, she is responsible for visionary leadership. Visionary leadership. I'm going to leave it with that. And Dr. Frances Thompson, if you will now introduce yourself to the students and of course, share what you certainly want them to know about your illustrious background and experiences.
Thank you, Ms. Eleanor, and I'm excited to be here with you, String Theory Charter School students and staff. My name is Dr. Nishawana Frances Thompson. I go by Dr. Nye, a proud graduate of Coppin State University down in Baltimore, Maryland, a teacher's college. And Philadelphia is where I started my teaching career. So I started here in the school district of Philadelphia as a teacher. Then I went from being a teacher to a special education liaison, and then on to a director of special ed, an executive director of special ed, executive director of curriculum, and now deputy chief in the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. But I attribute all of that to many things that I learned at Coppin State University, and really being proud of graduating from an institution that was founded for Black educators, and really thinking about Fannie Jackson Coppin and all that she stood for when she decided to have that Institute for Colored Teachers in Baltimore, Maryland. So again, excited to be here with you all to share my passions and share how those many lessons I learned at Coppin State University still ring true in the work that I do right here in the school district of Philadelphia.
All right, thank you. And we're sure that we're going to be talking to you more and get some questions from our students. And our next panelist is Selena Early. And Selena is a graduate of Hampton University and also received her MBA from LaSalle University. And her expertise is in IT project management. Selena?
Good morning. Like you said, I have graduated from Hampton University. I majored in management information systems, which is a fancy way of saying I have a business degree with a minor in computer science. I started my career teaching other folks about troubleshooting and training, and then I was a coder. And I have spent the majority of my career in the customer experience from an IT perspective. So I've managed a lot of projects from everything from needing new software on your computers in an organization to the technology, most of it in telecommunications. So I worked for old school Nextel, Sprint, Comcast, and currently I work for ADT. And in the role I have right now, my title is Customer Experience Digital Content Manager, which means I manage the website and everything that goes on it. So I'm happy to be here and look forward to our conversation.
Hey, and our next presenter is Miss Carlene Williams-Pole, and professionally, she is a recruiting manager. Carlene?
Yes, hi everybody. I too went to the Hampton University, the real HU. So I don't know if anybody's considering Howard out there, but I just wanted to make it very clear which HU is the real one. But nonetheless, I spent a majority of my career in recruiting. So I am a recruiting manager for campus recruiting at PricewaterhouseCoopers, short for PwC. Really excited to share my experience at Hampton. Probably one of the best experiences that I had in my entire life. Thanks to my mother for pushing me to go to an HBCU because I was not considering HBCUs in the beginning of my college application process, but it was the best decision of my life. Definitely prepared me for corporate America. I'm blessed to say that, you know, even before I started getting into the talent acquisition is what we call recruiting field. I've always held a leadership position. So my first job right out of college was an executive team leader with Target Corporation. And so I think going to an HBCU definitely prepared me for that. And I'm excited to share anything and answer any questions that you have for me today.
All right, well, thank you to our illustrious panelists. And before I begin asking some questions, I just want to share some facts about historically Black colleges and universities. And this is certainly so appropriate given that we are also in the midst of celebrating Black History Month, and HBCUs were really founded to provide educational opportunities for African Americans when other doors were closed. So there are currently 106 historically Black colleges and universities in the United States, and 2 of them are right here in our backyard, Lincoln University, as well as Cheney University. And when listening to Selena and her background and experience as an IT manager, one of the things I found is that HBCUs graduate a higher percentage of students majoring in computer sciences than other college universities. I thought that was a very, very significant fact to recall. And as well, HBCUs have graduated a Nobel Prize winner, astronauts, educators, certainly we have an educator here on our panel, and professional athletes, and just people of excellence across the professional spectrum. I just wanted to share those facts. And I did mention that Cheney is in this area, but it's also the oldest HBCU. So right here in our own background. All right, my question, panelists, is one that I'm sure you've probably answered at some point, and to some extent, Carlene, you did answer it, but I'll start with Dr. Francis Thomas. What did you say you prefer to be called for short, Dr. Thomas? Dr. Nye?
Dr. Nye. Dr. Nye.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Nye. You know, a lot of times when people attend an HBCU, it is a very conscious decision. Because obviously as a student, you apply to a college and you get a number of acceptances, but attending an HBCU is intentional. So Dr. Nye, was that the experience for you? You knew that you wanted to go to a school that was predominantly African-American or not?
The way I did, but the way I came across Coppin State University was very different. I had a good friend that was in an English class with me in high school at Martin Luther King High School in New York City. And he had planned on going to Coppin State to play basketball. So he was like, fill out the application, let's go together. So I looked into the university and I saw at the time it was a college and that there was a history of educating Black teachers. But I knew I wanted to be an educator. But years later, I found that my great-grandmother was one of 9 siblings, and she attended a historically Black college called Voorhees College in South Carolina. So finding out that history and knowing that that historically Black colleges was rooted in my family, I didn't know it at the time that I applied to Coppin State University. But again, one of the greatest decisions I could have ever made in my life.
Selena, how was it for you? Was it conscious to attend an HBCU?
It was pretty conscious for me. I originally am from a little town in South Jersey that most people have never heard of, named Lawnside, and it is one of the only all Black boroughs above the Mason-Dixon line. So we have a very rich history. It's a very small town, and it was always ingrained to us, you know, about HBCUs and, you know, the sense of community. So it was definitely on my radar. I just didn't know where I was going until a very fun college tour.
All right, and Carlene, I think you kind of answered that, but let's hear it again.
Sure. So I was not looking at HBCUs, but my mom really encouraged me to apply to some, and went to Hampton, really loved it, and it was the best decision of my life.
All right. Well, you know, I heard you say that Hampton was the real H as universities. For those who don't know, it's Howard University is what she was referring to. But let me say this to you, that Howard University was always known as the HBCU flagship. And it is, think about this, it is the only HBCU to have a line item in the federal budget. 1867. So of all the HBCUs, they're a line item. So they know that they're going to get a certain amount of money every year. You know, the Black colleges, you know, it's a struggle.
Hampton's a private school.
It is a struggle, yeah. But anyway, I just think that regardless to the HBCU that we attended, there are still those shared experiences we can all, relate to. We're going to ask the students to please start submitting any questions that you might have. I see somebody says, yeah, the lawn side. Yeah, we've heard of lawn side. It's not that far away from anything. Let's talk about, your conversations with other professional friends you have who may not have gone to an HBCU. What's the kind of conversation as it relates to the experience that you had when you're in conversation, say, with other professional women, and some of whom may not look like you? Let me throw that out to Dr. Nye.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I find when I'm interacting with particularly students of color or people of color that have not attended a historically Black colleges, that sense of pride in who we are as people. There was tons of history that I learned at Coppin State that was new to me. There was history that I didn't know about who we were as a people that I didn't learn in my public school experience. And at Coppin State, I got those experiences. So I read books like The Souls of Black Folks, right? Like that wasn't something that I was familiar with. And I learned about W.E.B. Du Bois. I learned about Carter G. Woodson. So I think to bringing that historical perspective to who we are as a people, it definitely gave me a strong sense of pride in who I am. And I'm very much unapologetic about that in spaces that I'm in right now. So when you look at curriculum that we're writing here in the school district of Philadelphia, I'm very much ensuring that the Black history and the experiences of Black people are rooted in our curriculum. And I think it comes from that experience at Coppin State. And then also just having people that actually believed in you. I share that, I didn't come from a very wealthy family, but I had the department chair who helped to pay my rent when I had to student teach in my last semester at Coppin. Like, you don't get that everywhere. And the fact that this department chair took that special interest in helping me to finish and complete my studies is something that I always remember, and making sure that I reach back and do that for other students. I think it's that pride, it's knowing who we are as people. And sometimes our students that are not attending HBCUs, unfortunately, they don't get that full experience.
Very powerful, and very insightful. Selena, has that been an experience for you as well when you're in other professional communities?
Definitely. Hampton is one big family. Everybody, it's like your aunts, your uncles, and your friends, and they stay your family for life. We have an alumni chapter here, of course, in Philadelphia, and I'll bring that back up later. But there's always people to reach out for. Like recently, I'm letting people know that these are jobs available, and you see things like that everyone doesn't have that same relationship with their schools. I just remember one thing when I first got out of college. I remember my best friend, she didn't go to an HBCU. And we were talking about how to dress for an interview. And even though she knew, she said she was so surprised at other people she saw going to interviews and what they had on. And Hampton made sure, like, they were your mom and your auntie, that these are the only things you wear. And, this is how you come, and you come prepared, with your best foot forward. So it was more than just the regular professional. It was just really caring about how you stepped into the world.
Arlene, share your experience.
Yeah, I think the good thing about going to an HBCU now is there's a ton of buzz in just the industry. So like as a recruiter, I don't get too much of, oh my goodness, you went to Hampton, I never heard of it. Where is it? They at least know like the big schools, so your Hampton, your Howards. I think for me, I noticed from a recruiting perspective that my HBCU students are coming with a lot of confidence and are not afraid to challenge. So I really, really appreciate that, because that makes them stand out in my info sessions, right? Because they're going to ask me, like, what is your organization doing to support development for Black people, for our communities? And so I think that is really, really helpful. I think also just my husband did not attend an HBCU. And it's so funny because I just never imagined giving my child an option about not going to an HBCU, but I'm married, and so you kind of gotta weigh the pros and cons there. But he said, I really admire like your friendship, and so to be able to reach out to people that look like me, that are anesthesiologists, that are working for Amazon, running finance. I mean, that's a level of access that people don't necessarily have, and so I really appreciate being able to do that and having that network available to me. I think one of the things that my husband probably struggles with is like, yeah, he went to college, he had a great time, but I don't think he has the camaraderie that I have. And he doesn't have like those really, really tight friends where my friends are all like in my wedding for life, and things like that.
I think certainly too, from my experience of having attended in historically Black colleges and universities, some of the clubs and organizations that you might have joined when you were in college, you still have those relationships and those friendships, decades later. For instance, if you're in a sorority, you probably pledged, or you might have pledged when you were on a college campus, but nevertheless, HBCUs are known for having, sororities and fraternities that a lot of other colleges don't have. So maybe you have relationships that started there, but it's that you maintain those. It's just something about that experience where there's always a connection, no matter how many years have passed, no matter how active you may be. And then you feel that commitment because you know about the struggles that HBCUs still face. And consequently, when you're, making your charitable donations, you make sure that that college and university is on your list. So I'm sure that that's the same for everybody here in terms of that. Let me just put in another couple of little facts here. It says that over half of all African-American professionals are graduates of HBCUs. And there are 4 HBCU medical schools. There's Medical School, there's the Morehouse School of Medicine, there's Charles R. Drew School of Medicine and Science, and Howard University Medical School, and Xavier University Medical School. Did I say 4? Okay. And this is an interesting fact because this is pretty close to where since I'm a graduate of Central State University, Wilberforce, Ohio. The first HBCU owned and operated by African Americans was Wilberforce University in Wilberforce, Ohio. And historically, it was founded in 1856 and named for William Wilberforce, who first led the efforts to abolish slavery. And as you know, there is a Wilberforce, Ohio. So just some interesting facts. And I will be very honest with you, because I was sort of researching, so I learned some things that I didn't know. So I mean, it's always something to learn, always something to learn. So do you have, what are the questions most when you're talking to young people and they know that you have attended an HBCU? What is the question that you hear most often? And let me start with Dr. Nye, since you're in that educational space and probably talk to more students than any of the rest of us.
Most students are interested in the college life and what is campus life like. But one of the questions that I heard in a recent panel was just around like the safety, right? And what does that look like? And I think that is important for students to consider when they are selecting a university, of the safety of the environment that they're attending a specific any university. But that was just an interesting question that I hadn't considered or even thought about, but definitely about the campus life. I lived on campus 3 years. In my last year, I had an apartment, but definitely they're asking about the social life. And, my biggest advice is definitely enjoy it, have fun, but also know that you are there for a purpose, right? You are there to secure that degree and really find yourself and through that experience. But definitely I enjoyed myself at Coppin State University, but I also made sure that I was committed to my academics and my studies.
Do you find, I guess, that when a student asks a question, and I know I get this quite a bit, and if they're going to an HBCU, I'll get a question about sorority life or other kinds of, most colleges and universities, even if they're not HBCUs, they have a Black student union or an African-American this or an African-American that. Whereas at an HBCU, it's all entwined, this is what it is. So I guess when a student asks you about maybe your particular school, what is the question that they might ask you the most? We know that you went to Hampton, or what is it that they ask you about Hampton if they are considering it? Let me start with Carlene.
I would say Hampton is known for having a lot of rules. I don't know if they still apply.
A lot of rules.
And so they're always like, oh, do you have a curfew? I think that's a turn off for a lot of students because freshman year, you have a curfew the first semester, I believe.
Until homecoming.
It's until homecoming. And you might not get off on homecoming if the behavior of your dorm is not good. And so I think I get questions like that, but it's something you can manage. I don't know if they still do that, but it's fine. And as long as you live in a dorm and everybody works together, the curfew is lifted pretty quickly.
All right, Selena?
I agree, again, with the campus life. And I also get a lot of questions about finances, of course. How did you pay? And I do go into some detail about only taking the money you need in financial aid, because they will give you a refund check, and it might be fun for that semester. A lot of people spend a lot of that money partying. Some of us used it to survive, but if you take a lot of extra money, we talk about, you have to pay it back. So if you don't need to do that, and other sources to finding money, I would suggest, if there is a school that you are going to see if there's a local alumni chapter. They always have scholarships. They may not be huge, but they also may know other folks that have money that they are giving away that you can look into. And a lot of times I've helped numerous. My husband is in a fraternity, and we have paid some tuition. People need the last little bit of money to end the semester. So just communicating and being very open about, finances, and having those conversations with parents, what's the reality, because parents are, able to do a certain amount, and you may work and you may have some money, and seeing what it really looks like financially, where the gap is and what you need to do.
When you were looking at, I guess, you've been graduates of undergraduates for a certain number of years, and me forever. But as you think back, and I guess when you're making the decision, it tends to be that the HBCUs are more affordable, just across the board. That tends to be the case. You're shaking your head. Well, other than state,
not Hampton.
Well, Hampton is one of the what they call it, sort of one of the Black Ivies, if you will. I think that's one of the terms that has been used for that.
Another piece to that is also like in-state, out-of-state, right? So I was coming from New York to Baltimore, so the tuition was extremely high, being an out-of-state student. So I think that I'm glad that Selena brought up the financial aspect of it, because I think it's not particularly talked about enough, of that commitment and what that means when you are actually attending a university, and what the cost looks like, and how that pans out in terms of your career and what you end up making, and how you're able to fund your university experience. Because we can't assume that everyone is entering the university space with scholarships or parents that are able to fund. So I definitely highly advocate for looking for scholarships, and also trying to find other means to help you fund your tuition. One of the things that I did when I was coming from New York was that I joined the AmeriCorps, and that also gave me an opportunity to work while also receiving a stipend to help go towards my tuition. So any opportunity that you can find to get some additional funding is definitely important, because we don't want our young people to end up in debt and regretting that they, you have these wonderful degrees And, sometimes it doesn't always pan out the way you think it should be. So I think that's important to share.
Okay, I'm going to just give a couple more little facts. And when I come back to the panelists, I'd like for you to talk about your careers, because we are talking about not only your HBCU graduates, but want to talk about the work that you do. But let me just put this out here. Over half of all African-American professionals are graduate of HBCUs. And I thought this was interesting. We all know that James Weldon Johnson wrote the words for the famous, what we call Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And he graduated from the HBCU Atlanta University. All right, let's start. We'll go around. Let's start with Selena. Selena, tell us about the work that you do, what you enjoy about it, what the challenges are.
Currently, as I mentioned, I am managing the content that is on ADT's website. I'm new to this role. I was a contractor with them before. I was managing other IT projects. So now I am looking at everything that we have published to our customers. And my job is to make it a better customer experience. So make it more user-friendly. So you don't have to click through a lot of things to see what you need to do. For folks that want to pay their bill, like the technology behind recognizing, that you logged in from this account before. So you don't have to put in your username and password. And just any new information that's out there. So help and support, so you don't have to call, right? Because nobody wants to talk to someone. I want it at the tip of my fingers. That's pretty much my job right now, and working with some of these things, need to be coded. Some things are just, like I can write the content and publish it myself. But a lot of the IT teams that we have behind our apps and everything, I work with them to define what I'm looking for, what it needs to look like. Is it on brand? Is it, the newest logo that we're using? So every day is a different set of projects that I work on usually. I sit on, different main projects. Right now, we are partnering with Google. So we have a lot of conversations with them, and a lot of content. When we write the content, they have to approve it. And I work with those teams. We just published some videos from the Scott brothers. They are the guys on HDTV, they're twin brothers. They are doing commercials for us. So publishing content like that. In the past though, I've like I mentioned, I've done coding. I have implemented new billing systems for companies and taught call centers across the US and Canada. I've traveled extensively all year long for years, listening to, customer calls and understanding really what the customer needs. So for 15 years, I've been understanding what a good customer experience should be.
Nice.
Very interesting work. Very interesting work. Dr. Nye, as an educator, lifelong educator, and one who is now in the hierarchy of the school district of Philadelphia, if you will share a little bit more about your work.
Yes, I absolutely love what I do, because I get to look at curriculum and designing curriculum for the students that we have today. So I'm excited to lead that and be the visionary person behind that. Of course, I have a dynamic team of people that engage with teachers, that engage with students, that engage with community stakeholders to really develop curriculum that is unique to the children here in Philadelphia. And so I'm excited to be leading the Curriculum Equity Initiative. We are in year 2, so we are wrapping up our final units for English language arts and math. But very, very, very passionate about the work. I'm sitting here and I have tons of books that I have to read to make sure that what we're putting in the hands of young people is good information for them to really learn and really see through that information in their own authentic ways, and not be caught up in a place of misinformation. So I'm excited about bringing the truth to curriculum, excited about bringing things that matter to our young people in the curriculum. And I'm excited about the challenges. We are in the midst of COVID, right? So we are trying to educate young people. We have a teaching force that is slowly slipping away. So I'm excited about reimagining what public education can look like for our teachers, for our students here in Philadelphia. But it is definitely a challenge. I, as a deputy chief, a couple of weeks ago was teaching a kindergarten class, teaching a 6th grade class, at a high school covering the cafeteria. So it's doing all the things that need to be done in the moment. You know, we're in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of a crisis and still trying to educate our young people. But I am even more enthusiastic about what we are called to do to serve our young people in this city. So I love all things curriculum. I love reading. I love talking to teachers, love talking to students, and I love unpacking these crazy things that may seem crazy and chaotic and making them plain and clear so that we can move our young people forward.
Well, I tell you, we can certainly feel your passion. And I share your passion. I was an educator for 2 years before I became a television broadcaster. I taught junior high school social studies, as a matter of fact. And my experience growing up, my parents at the time were both educators. And that's just been the arc of the whole family. I said my uncle was a former president of Fisk University. My grandfather was a college professor. So education has just been the foundation of my life. And I think that sort of once a teacher, always a teacher, because I found how the lines were so connected between being an educator and being a broadcaster, because it's about teaching and learning. So I hear your passion. Carlene, if you will share with us the kind of work that you do, and I'm sure you're passionate about it as well.
Yeah, I love my job. So my new role at PwC, it's very new. I got recruited to PwC in August. So in my past jobs, I worked for JP Morgan, the wealth management side of the business. So essentially, if you know anything about wealth, I did all the campus recruiting for the MBA level for clients that have $25 million or above. So that was really a really cool job. And I really got to focus on finding diverse bankers and investors. So I really spent a lot of time working at Howard University because they have a really good MBA school, and then some institutions like Wharton, University of Virginia, et cetera. So that was my job up until about August, and then got recruited to PwC. I don't get to campus as much as I would like, one, because of COVID, but now I'm more responsible for strategic planning in a sense. And so my job is to, one, make sure that PwC hires accounting majors and finance majors. And PwC stands for PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's the second largest accounting firm. And so we're everywhere. But I am responsible for 3 schools at the MBA level and the undergraduate level. Unfortunately, it does not include Hampton University, but I do all the recruiting for Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, which is really cool because to be African-American and support the #1 business school in the world is an honor. And then also I do all the recruiting for Pace University in New York and then St. John's University. So I do a lot of recruiting. I talk to young people when I can. I do volunteer my time to support HBCUs because PricewaterhouseCoopers does have an HBCU initiative. But I do want to leave you all with a tip because I think going to HBCUs is fun. But I would tell you what you should look at when you're looking at schools is what companies go to their campus. And so if you're doing your research, I would ask who comes to your career fair, because that is how you get access into whatever field you want to do, but make sure that you are in that top tier job market. And I think that's sometimes where students kind of miss, like they focus on like they do a good job with their school and they get good grades and then they pledge and they're SGA vice president, and then like none of the top employers go to those particular schools. And so make sure that you're looking at what schools apply, and then if the curriculum matches what ultimately you want to do. Because a lot of times students say, oh, I want to major in accounting, and then they don't have 150 credits because their school doesn't offer that. and then I can't hire them. So I think that's really important. I knew that I did not want to go back home and have to live with my parents, just because they have a lot of rules about how they run their household, and that's totally fine. I wanted to do that on my own. So it was really important for me to be able to come out with a job, and one that would be able to allow me to get my own apartment and afford my own car. So I definitely encourage you to do that. I think every single day, I'm always looking to help minorities get through our interview process, because it's very challenging. And then also, just be a voice. I get a lot of women that say, hey, if I work at PwC, can I wear braids, right? And I'm like, sure, you can wear braids, but not every organization allows that, accepts that. There's a Crown Act out there, but my company is one that does support that. And so I really enjoy talking to students one-on-one and making sure that they feel comfortable throughout our recruiting process. So I actually started off as an education major at Hampton and then switched to political science because I thought I wanted to go to law school. So I definitely am not an educator, but I definitely do a lot of coaching around how to do your interview, how you should prepare for one, what you should be wearing. And so I do a lot of mentoring on the side. So that's part of my everyday job. But what I do a lot of is just interviewing and making sure that our candidates are equipped to do well at PwC right now.
One of the things is I'm sorry.
I was going to say the other thing that I didn't mention, I have I guess my side job is I actually work for Penn as well, as a graduate admissions, like I read graduate admissions applications. So I'm always excited to see our background, but I don't see it often. So I encourage the STEM, courses, because there's not a lot of representation the higher up you go. And I think if you can get into good programs in your undergraduate with HBCUs, you'll have a leg up, because we're missing in some of these STEM, upper degrees. I read a lot of applications and resumes and backgrounds. So I would encourage you, when you are at school having a good time, to get involved, like you said, with SGA, get involved with some organizations, and definitely try to get some good internships, because they matter if you decide to continue your education as well.
All right, we have someone who is with the String Theory Charter School, who is a graduate of an HBCU, and we're going to hear from her now. Ms. Corey Stewart, if you will introduce yourself.
Oh, well, can you hear me?
We can see you. Yep, we can see you and hear
Can you hear me?
And hear you.
We can.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know I was being spotlighted.
Well, I was told that you were. So here we go.
I
I'm
put you on the spot. Blame me. But you're
It's okay.
such a good spokesperson. She has to wear her mask because she's in a classroom
I understand.
at this moment. Go ahead, Corey.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I didn't expect to be spotlighted, but I was going to ask a question because my students didn't have any questions. But I definitely appreciate the opportunity this year. I did have an opportunity to attend not one, but two historically Black colleges. I started off, so much of what you ladies said when this early morning resonated with me. I started off at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. I went there for a year and a half, and I transferred to Lincoln University, which is where I received my undergraduate Caroline in political science. Also went to law school for a little bit, about 2 years at Thomas Cooley before coming back to fully educate, right? So I think that you guys brought up so much that I can talk to about having attended a historically Black college or university. I started off, I'm a product of Philadelphia School District. I graduated from the Philadelphia High School for Girls. So I'm super duper excited about that. And going to an HBCU initially was not on my list. I was one of those students who said I wanted to go to a school where it was diverse and people didn't look like me. It wasn't until we had a high school fair, college fair at my school, and I met Africa Jemison, who was a Zeta, as well as I'm not a Zeta, but she was a Zeta, a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And she also was the admissions counselor at Fisk. And on that evening, I applied, I got accepted. I went to visit and I was sold. With Fisk, as much of our historically Black colleges and universities are walking, talking, breathing history books, right? And so I love that experience of being able to go to Fisk. And then I think it took me the experience of going to an HBCU like Fisk to appreciate a HBCU right in my backyard, Lincoln. So when I got to Lincoln, it was a great experience. I pledged Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm a member of the Zeta Omega chapter, Spring 09. And it was there, like you said, we learned so much. We learned our history that we didn't know. We were charged with being involved. You never forget the people who made the most influences in your life, like the people who helped pay your bills or you reached out to after you graduated and said, hey, I'm struggling. Can you send me a few dollars, right? Or I need a letter of recommendation for this job. And I'm speaking transparently in front of my students, right? And so we had those experiences that landed us where we are today. And fast forward, I started off being an educator right after I started as a substitute teacher, initially graduating after leaving Lincoln, right? Because I tell students a lot of times we become professional resume submitters and cover letter submitters. I wanted to go to law school, but my LSAT scores weren't that high. I had a high GPA at Lincoln, but my LSAT scores weren't that high, right? And so looking at those things, like you ladies mentioned, is super duper critical. I graduated from Lincoln, and like I said, I started subbing in the fall of 2010. Eventually became a teacher and wanted to fulfill my dream of going to law school. Went to law school, that didn't quite work out all the way because of financial aid, right? We talked about that money situation. And then being able to come back and work and decide that my passion is actually education, right? And working with young people. And I'm so excited to see Nashona on here, Ms. Thompson, just talking about that curriculum, right? I'm at Eastern right now, getting that Master's of Curriculum and Instruction so I can keep working. And so I love the fact that, I have the opportunity to be in a classroom and influence change and talk to my students. And I really love what I do and I'm totally invested in what I do. And I think going to an HBCU, a lot like I think a lot of you talked about, gives you that idea to want to be out, that courage to be outspoken, even when you are the only person in the room, right? So super duper excited about my experiences that I had, that I shared, and super duper thankful that you guys allowed me to share on this day. One of the things I did want to talk about was our sacredness, the sacredness of being at an HBCU, right? Some of those things that are so important to us, like our alma mater. I still remember the alma mater at Fisk and both Lincoln, right? I had the privilege of going to both those schools, and also those big culmination events, that homecoming every single year, that pump handle for Lincoln University, those basketball games, those sports games, and just seeing all of that played out, just so HBCUs are great. And I guess if we had, I know my students said they didn't have a question, but if I had to pose a question, I would ask the panel, how do we feel about them? Are they still relevant today? I personally think they are, but that would be my question for the panel. Thank you for letting me share.
Corey.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank
Good
you.
job, Corey.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. You certainly had a lot to add to this panel. And frankly, I'm very excited about this panel, in that not only we'll talk about HBCUs, but also to share your very rich professional and educational experiences. And, when I think about the generations, I mean, I'm a baby boomer and proud of it. But I'm you ladies who are in different career fields, and some of them were not, some of those doors weren't open when I was coming up. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up, there were no women who looked like me that I saw in television news. So I never could have even imagined that one day I could become an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, because you have to see it to believe it, then you can work to achieve it. But to hear of the some of the pioneering efforts you ladies are making in your career fields is just so encouraging, And also so proud that you're my PA Coalition sisters. So that's a special relationship. And I did hear Miss Corey mention about being a Delta. We got some AKAs on here too. All right, Dr. Nye, hello. Okay. And again, we talked about, sororities, fraternities, and a lot of other different kinds of organizations being so much a part of the culture in HBCUs. So with that said, I'd like to thank all of you who have agreed to participate on the panel. I certainly want to have some closing comments from Mava Justice. Mava is the co-chair of the Education Committee of the PA Coalition of 100 Black Women, and I'm a former and proud chair of that committee. So Mava was very instrumental in helping to organize this. So if you might make some closing remarks on behalf of the coalition.
Absolutely. Everyone, I am just so excited. This has been an excellent panel. And we just call it a privilege to be able to provide this to your school. We want to thank both our charter member, Eleanor Jean Henley, as well as Susan Thomas for inviting us to the school. We came last year. We like to come again as often as you would like us to. In closing, I just wanted to share with you that I am with the Education Committee of the coalition, and our goal is to get as much information out to the masses. Our organization is geared towards African American young ladies and women. However, we want to provide as much information to the entire community as we possibly can. So in the Education Committee, we do have programs such as these career panels as well. We're going to have a college fair on April the 30th, and I will get that information to Susan Thomas. And we also have some various other programs, such as mentoring programs and STEM programs that we will keep you apprised of. So we just want to thank you for inviting us, because this is what we're all about, educating and advocacy for education for the community. So we just like to thank you.
Well, thank you. And Susan, we will let you have the last word.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful panel, and I, so appreciate it so much. There was so much that went into organizing and presenting this, especially on Zoom and reaching as many children. We're so appreciative of it. If any of the children or teachers participating or individuals participating from other parts of my program at String Theory have any questions, they can email me and I will send those emails on to Mava and Eleanor Jean. And I think now in about 1 minute, the children will be changing classes. Thank you also to Corey for jumping in. And there she is. Okay, so I think we will just end on a very happy and appreciative note, and look forward to having you back again in the future. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, thank you.
You're